Okay, we are live, I think. Hey, God Neil Contracts, welcome to the stream. I've got the music muted because I don't want to get copyright strike for whatever classical song they've got playing here in the background. So, in the meanwhile, I'll try to do a little bit of analysis wherever I can on the market. So, give me a few seconds to go ahead and finish getting this all set up here. I think as long as I've got the controls here, should be okay. Okay, then we'll put up BIORA's stock on TradingView. So they should be starting any moment now. All right, I think we are set up now. Oh, all right, they are starting.
And the conference is being recorded. After the presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask questions. To join the question queue, you may press star, then 1 on your telephone keypad. Should you need assistance during the conference call, you may signal an operator by pressing star and 0. I will now turn the call over to Alexandra Schumann, Associate Director with LifeSci Advisors, BIORA's investor relations firm.
Thank you, operator. Good afternoon and welcome to the BIORA Therapeutics third quarter 2022 corporate update and financial results conference call. Joining me on the call are Adi Mohanty, Chief Executive Officer, and Eric Desbarbes, Chief Financial Officer. Before I turn the call over to Mr. Mohanty, I would like to remind you that today's call will include forward-looking statements within the meaning of the federal securities laws, including but not limited to the types of statements identified as forward-looking in our quarterly report on Form 10-Q that we will file later today and our subsequent reports filed with the SEC, which will all be available on our website in the Investors section. These forward-looking statements represent our views only as of the date of this call and involve substantial risks and uncertainties, including many that are beyond our control. Please note that the actual results could differ materially from those projected in any forward-looking statement, For a further description of the risks and uncertainties that could cause the actual results to differ materially from those expressed in the forward-looking statements, as well as the risks related to our business, please see the company's periodic reports filed with the SEC. With that, I will now turn the call over to Adi Mohanty, the CEO of BIORA Therapeutics.
Thanks, Alex, and thank you everyone for joining us. During the quarter, we continued to focus on execution and made important progress towards our IND filing for PGN-600. We presented at key scientific conferences more detailed data from our device function studies for our targeted therapeutics program. In our systemic therapeutics program, we continue to optimize our device and presented important new data at multiple scientific conferences. While almost all our energy and focus is on our therapeutics pipeline, we remain committed to capturing value from our legacy assets through sale, licensing, or other agreements. We recently completed a transaction with Roche to sell some of our legacy IP, and earlier this year, we completed a spin-out of our liquid biopsy assets to a company now funded by an experienced venture capital firm to further develop the program. As those programs move forward towards key value inflection points, our stake in the assets could eventually result in meaningful financial return to BIORA. We continue to pursue opportunities to create further value with our other remaining legacy assets. We also opportunistically raised incremental capital to extend our runway towards key data readouts next year. Eric will cover the details later in the call. We're very happy with the continued support from our largest current investor, Ethereum. Their additional investment in BIORA illustrates not only their commitment to the therapeutics programs we're developing, but also their belief, which we share, that our stock is currently undervalued. First, let me cover our targeted therapeutics platform with our lead program in ulcerative colitis. Annual global sales for UC drugs are estimated to be approximately $7 billion, and the inflammatory bowel disease, or IBD space overall, is about $19 billion globally. Currently available therapeutics work by being taken up systemically throughout the body, with a limited amount reaching the disease area or tissue in the colon. Moreover, most therapeutics are given via IV or needle-based administration, which adds to the patient's burden. Our lead program, PGN-600, is a proprietary liquid formulation of tofacitinib in an easy-to-administer oral device that can deliver a drug to the colon using our targeted technology. The device is approximately the size of a fish oil pill. A commercially available version of tofacitinib is approved for the treatment of UC. Tofacitinib is administered orally, and like other drugs that are orally delivered, is mostly absorbed in the stomach or the upper GI tract, whereas UC is a disease of the lower GI tract. By delivering drug topically at the site of disease where it is needed, PGN-600 has the potential to improve efficacy and also limit systemic exposure to improve safety. We're extremely pleased with the ongoing development of our targeted drug delivery device. At the recent American College of Gastroenterology annual meeting, we shared the results from our PM602 study. This study assessed the safety and performance of the device in active UC patients. Given the different GI physiology and disease activity in these patients, it is critical that the device performs as intended and can identify entry into the colon, activate, and release a payload in UC patients. In this study, the device was orally ingested by patients with active, moderate to severe ulcerative colitis. After identification of colon entry, we showed the device released a saline solution payload that included radioisotopes. Scintigraphic imaging was used to independently indicate device localization and payload delivery targeted to the lower GI tract. The device was well tolerated, and the study demonstrated that in all patients, the device accurately identified entry into the colon, triggered release of a liquid payload, and importantly, achieved distribution across the entire lower colon. The results of this study have been reviewed by world-renowned gastroenterologists, including members of our IBD Clinical Advisory Board, who have provided feedback that these results demonstrate the potential of the targeted therapeutics platform to transform management of ulcerative colitis by improving efficacy through increased drug concentration in the colon, while potentially minimizing the harmful side effects associated with high systemic drug uptake. This successful study in ulcerative colitis patients supports the safety and performance of the device and is a key step in advancing our PGN-600 program. We have now completed 3 successful human studies with our device, which demonstrates the potential of the platform for localized delivery of drugs. We're not aware of any other oral drug delivery technology that can accurately detect colon entry, especially in an environment of inflammation, bleeding, and highly variable motility seen with patients who have UC.
Because it doesn't exist.
As previously shared, we're planning a phase 1 single and multiple ascending dose study to evaluate safety, tolerability, pharmacokinetics, and pharmacodynamics of PGN-600. We expect that the single ascending dose study will include 24 healthy volunteers and evaluate drug concentration in serum and feces. The multiple ascending dose study is also planned to include 24 healthy volunteers with repeat daily dosing for 7 days. And in addition to drug concentrations in serum and feces, we will also measure drug concentrations in colon tissue. 2 different doses of PGN-600 are planned for both studies, 5 and 10 milligrams of tofacitinib daily. These doses are well below the commercially approved induction dose of tofacitinib of 10 milligrams twice daily. We have included a diagram of our clinical study design in the corporate presentation on our website. We have shown important data on the correlation between tissue concentration of tofacitinib and improved patient outcomes. If the clinical data generated in our phase 1 trial confirms that we can safely achieve high tissue concentrations, just as we have seen with PGN-600 in preclinical studies, we believe there's a high likelihood of improving remission rates in UC patients compared to current therapies. Because of the well-known therapeutic profile of tofacitinib in standard oral formulations, we believe our development risks for PGN-600 are reduced. Soon after the phase 1 trial is completed, we plan to move into a disease interventional study where we will evaluate clinical remission after 8 weeks treatment with PGN-600 in active UC patients. We received constructive feedback from the FDA earlier this year that helped clarify our next steps, and we have been able to incorporate suggestions generally aligned with our development plans. We're continuing active engagement with the agency over the next few months as we prepare to file our IND early next year. We know that a vast majority of UC patients are still suffering with a large unmet need. Our solution can potentially solve one of the main gaps of all the current therapeutic options, which is the inability to get enough drug to the diseased tissue. So we're keen to move this program forward expeditiously while ensuring that we follow the necessary regulatory and clinical steps. Next, I'll cover our systemic therapeutics platform. During the third quarter, we continued development of our systemic delivery device. As mentioned before, we have seen very encouraging data from this platform early in the year. Over the last several months, we've been moving forward with development of the device to evolve from a research-grade device to a clinical-grade device. Our ongoing improvements and evolution of the device will ensure sourcing of parts from suppliers that can meet the stringent regulatory requirements for medical human use. We had expected to complete these improvements in late summer. However, some supplier sourcing challenges affected our timelines by a few weeks. Having worked through these supply issues, we're now moving forward with our studies and hope to complete these in the coming months. If successful, these data could be sufficient to progress our program towards our goal of expanding our pharma collaborations and partnership discussions. As a reminder, our systemic therapeutics platform aims to facilitate oral administration of drugs that would otherwise require injection or infusion. Our solution is an oral device which provides liquid jet delivery of large molecules to the small intestine to maximize systemic uptake. The platform has the potential to deliver a broad range of large molecules such as proteins, peptides, and nucleic acids without complex reformulation. We believe this platform can help improve disease management and associated patient outcomes, reduce intravenous infusion costs, help expand the market for drugs across a range of chronic use indications, and help biotherapeutics such as monoclonals become more competitive with small molecule substitutes. During the third quarter, we presented data on both our preclinical model development as well as other key data at scientific conferences, including the American College of Gastroenterology Annual Scientific Meeting, Controlled Release Society Annual Meeting, and the Parenteral Drug Association Universe of Prefilled Syringes and Injection Devices Conference. As we progress our clinical-grade device, we're conducting animal studies to ensure that we can generate data that is similar to the data generated with our research-grade device. We expect to continue to evolve the device and generate data in the coming months. Our collaborators continue to be very supportive of our work on this platform. We believe that achieving 10 to 15% bioavailability through oral delivery would enable our platform to be commercially viable with a broad range of large molecules, and we believe that data from these studies could be sufficient to progress our collaborations and potential new partnerships into next stages. To summarize some of our anticipated upcoming milestones for both platforms. We plan to initiate a tox study with PGN-600 after we obtain final feedback from the FDA on our study protocols later this year. And based on the results, intend to file an IND in Q1 2023 to support the initiation of our phase 1 study. We expect to start having interim data around mid next year and to complete the study by Q3 23. We're continuing to optimize our next generation systemic therapeutics device to support additional preclinical data generation by Q1 23. And based on the additional data, we expect to expand our collaborations during the remainder of 2023. Finally, we expect to initiate our phase 2 trial for PGN-600 after completion of phase 1 next year. With that, I'll now turn the call over to Eric Desparbes for a discussion of our financial results and capital market activities.
Thanks, Adi, and good afternoon, everyone. Our near-term focus remains optimizing capital allocation to our therapeutics pipeline and extending our cash runway. We recently announced a registered direct financing. We raised $9.7 million in total, with $6 million in gross proceeds from an existing investor, while Ethereum reinvested $3.7 million from the interest on their convertible notes to ensure the company's funds are allocated in priority to our programs. The continued commitment by our investors to support BIORA's key programs is very encouraging. Those funds will help the company work towards important clinical milestones coming up in 2023, which Adi just highlighted. Separately, in the face of challenging markets, the stock of many smaller public companies, especially in biotech, have not been performing well, irrespective of progress in their development or clinical activities, and BIORA is no exception. We firmly believe our programs are progressing well, as Adi described earlier, but it may take time for our stock price to properly reflect the value we generate from our programs. As a result, following our last capital raise, we filed last week a preliminary proxy statement to seek approval from our shareholders to effect a reverse stock split to ensure compliance with NASDAQ requirements and enhance our public company profile. Management and our board believe this is the necessary path forward in the face of unprecedented and difficult capital market conditions. We believe this exercise is procedural in nature, doesn't change the way stockholders should look at value, and preserve investors' opportunity to generate a return on their investment as we generate data and achieve important milestones. Moving now to our financial performance for the third quarter. We are a focused organization with a much-reduced cash burn profile. Operating expenses, excluding stock-based compensation expenses, were $11.8 million in the third quarter of 2022, a reduction of $1.1 million compared to Q2, as we continue to align the organization to our more focused needs. As a result, we are meeting our original goal of having monthly operating cash burn at or below $4 million. More specifically, G&A expenses in the third quarter were $8.1 million, including $1.3 million in stock-based compensation expense, a slight reduction compared to Q2, while R&D expenses in the third quarter were $5.8 million, including $0.8 million in stock-based compensation expense. As we mentioned in our previous call, we expect R&D expenses will mainly track our clinical studies workflow, and combined with further G&A cost savings, we maintain our expectation of ending the year with a monthly operating cash burn of less than $4 million. We had a cash balance of $37.1 million as of September 30th, 2022, and combined with the additional $9.7 million capital raised just recently, we have extended our runway towards key data readouts in Q3 next year, thanks to our reduced cash burn. With that, I will now turn the call over back to Adi.
That
Thanks,
was good.
Eric.
A $3 million
BIORA continues
drop
to
in
make good
expenses
progress
is
in
very
both
good.
our targeted therapeutics and systemic therapeutics programs. We are excited about a number of our near-term milestones. We look forward to providing further updates as we continue to generate more data. With that, operator, we're now ready for questions.
Thank you. We will now begin the question and answer session. To join the question queue, you may press star, then 1 on your telephone keypad. You will hear a tone acknowledging your request. If you are using a speakerphone, please pick up your handset before pressing any keys. To withdraw your question, please press star, then 2. We will pause for a moment as callers join the queue. The first question comes from Joe Pantginis with H.C. Wainwright. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. Good afternoon. Thanks for taking the question. A few questions. A couple of them are logistical. So first, with regard to the IND, obviously you mentioned the tox study. Is there anything else that's outstanding or that might be considered a rate-limiting step at this point besides tox?
Nope.
Great. Simple answer. Okay. Yeah, no, I love it. Simple is great. And then when you look towards the multiple ascending dose study or even the SAD as part of the phase 1 or phase 1/2, is the FDA requiring any time delays between patients for safety observations?
No, actually. So this is why that previous interaction was great. It's going to be pretty smooth, the SAD. We're getting the serum and feces. We're not really waiting. But we're taking a small wait, like a few days between the SAD and the MAD, which is, again, typical. But no waiting between patients.
Okay, that's great. And then when you look towards the MAD and you talked about getting colon tissue samples, I guess, can you talk a little bit about the process, the commonality of the procedure, just to give sort of listeners a little bit of a teaser, if you will?
Yeah. Well, so in the MAD, like you mentioned, our intention is to not just get serum and feces, but also at a couple of points, get some biopsies. So get a tissue sample so that we can actually check what concentration of drug is in that tissue. That procedure itself is really not that uncommon. It's not common to do it for UC patients, but it is common medical procedure done routinely, in so many different settings, that it's really nothing unique and special about it other than we just want a little bit of tissue like they normally do any other sampling. And so here's where we think the big value it will be in what we provide, which is getting a tissue concentration like what we've shown matters in UC patients with some of the papers that are published. So straightforward, but really important, because that's what flags or separates us from everybody else, right? That we can get drug into the tissue where others cannot. And we have a target we're shooting for that is also well known in terms of drug concentration in the tissue. Simple procedure, extremely valuable data.
Got it. And then my last question, just sort of switching gears to the legacy company. I guess, obviously you've already established a track record in being able to monetize the past. So I guess, with regard to what's remaining, can you describe, I guess, the level of maturity of the discussions with regard to the legacy assets?
Let me just verify. So regard the level of maturity of conversations?
Yes, of conversations. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fine, because there's a lot of IP. It's all over the place. Some needing a little bit more work, some fairly mature. We have had several conversations. Some have been going on for a while and have progressed quite well. But in these kinds of conversations, you never know. It could happen in a couple of weeks. It could take a couple of months. But these are not really long-term. In the way we're thinking, it's fairly near-term is where we hope that we'll have some things.
Great. Appreciate all the extra details, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Joe.
The next question comes from Julian Harrison with BTIG. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my questions, and apologies if I missed any of this. I got into the call a few minutes late. First, on your systemic delivery platform, wondering how soon you can enter clinical testing. Does sometime next year seem reasonable at this point? And also wondering if the benchmark from a PK standpoint varies at all across different payloads beyond antibodies. How much have you characterized at this point? Thanks.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Julian. So you are correct that the bioavailability will vary depending on molecules, and some of it is how much bioavailability is necessary for it to be commercially viable, but some of it is also the dosing regimen could change. So, for example, for a couple of our molecules, we're pretty familiar with what kind of requirements they would have. They're commercially available drugs that are currently injected, and we can get a very similar profile to that with 10 to 15% daily dose. For some others, like monoclonals, etc., a less frequent dosing would be sufficient at the same 10 to 15% bioavailability. Each of these molecules are different. We have at least 4 or 5 different molecules worth of data, and in all of those, there's some amount of consistency in that. In general, 10 to 15% makes it commercially viable. What's then possible with a higher bioavailability could be less frequent dosing. For some, even with the same bioavailability, you could change the dosing regimen. So it's a combination of different things depending on the molecule. As far as progress, our focus, as we said, right, is, in a capital-efficient way, move our company forward towards significant inflection. And that means making sure we get our targeted program into the clinic, run that trial. So on the systemic side, we're focusing on this generation of data in the coming months that would allow us to progress our collaborations, maybe start new conversations, expand the collaborations that we have. And we think that could lead to significant value creation, and so that would be our near-term focus. We do have some data where we could have a clinical-ready conversation with the FDA, but that's not the priority. Our priority would be, let's make sure we get this clinical-grade device ready, get the data in a way that we can say the data now is similar to the preclinical device, and that would allow us to expand the conversations, and that's our focus with the systemic program.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
The next question comes from Mayank Mamtani with B. Riley Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi, yes. Thank you for taking our questions today. This is William Wood on from Mayank Mamtani. Congratulations on the success over the past quarter. I think I have 2 questions here. The first one centered around your IND. I know you touched on that a little bit already. I think I just want a little bit of clarification on what may be left in order to come to a full alignment with the FDA. I know you said that you were generally aligned with the development plan. I'm curious if there's what may be occurring over the next couple of months to get in alignment, and just any additional color you have would be appreciated.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, with the FDA, it's always better not to say there's 100% until they give you the approval to the IND. So we're pretty good. We feel pretty good. We have filed our tox protocol with them just to be safe, extra safe, maintain a conversation. So we want to do this completely with full interaction, open conversation with them. We feel that, it's going well. So as soon as we have that back, sometime soon, we'll run the actual tox study. So once you run the tox study, you have to get a report, and that's the final piece that'll go into an IND filing. So we expect still to be able to do all of this in Q1 of the coming year. No really reason to worry about anything other than just getting these things executed.
Okay, I appreciate it, and makes sense. And then my second question actually is centered around your GLP-1 delivery via your systemic therapeutic platform. I was curious in regards to the patent, if this is specific for only GLP-1 single agonists, or if this actually is expanded out to, say, a GLP-1 glucagon or a GLP-GIP glucagon, a triple agonist or something of that sort. And then I know your current study, or you're currently working with liraglutide. I'm curious if this has the potential to be expanded for SEMA or even potentially like a CAG or SEMA dual formulation of that sort. Any extra color would be great.
Okay, so the GLP-1 patent, we're pretty excited. It's a pretty broad patent, so it covers a lot of what you mentioned, which is it is not specific to the one molecule that we have. It is a broad coverage of all GLP-1s delivered through tissue orally. So it does cover dual and, so all of the things you said, it covers all of those. So yes, it covers dual. It's very broad. We have the patent on file. I mean, you can read it, and even through our website. So all the details of that, all the questions you asked, very valid. It is quite exciting that it's that broad and it covers all those different aspects. We'll initially try to stay a little bit focused to generate data with, a focused molecule, but all of those dual and tris are possible and will be opportunities for us to expand.
Got it. I think I'll leave it there. I appreciate you taking our questions, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
This concludes the question-answer session. I would like to turn the conference back over to Adi Mohanty for any closing remarks.
Thank you all once again for joining us. We are really excited about our progress and look forward to keeping you updated on all of our progress. Thank you.
This concludes today's conference call. You may disconnect your lines. Thank you for participating and have a pleasant day.
Okay, so that does it for the earnings call. The most bullish news that we got was that they dropped their expenditure by more than $3 million cash burn. So that is a positive development. They were not dropping their cash burn as quickly as they had targeted at first. So this is probably going to beat estimates. Let me go and see what their let me go bring up their financial statements really quickly, and we'll go over that stuff. So first, I will bring these side by side. And we'll take a look at the financials for BIORA next to its statement. Okay. So we take a look at their income statement. Let's just go over all the highlights first. So the number one thing that they did to increase their cash runway was they rose capital directly by $9.75 million. They did this by selling shares directly to Ethereum Capital Management, which at this point, they're probably more our friends than our enemies anymore. These guys are getting targeted too now. That's my theory. They've been invested in BIORA since the stock was trading at $20 per share. And the stock's value has declined so far down that they could buy up the entire company, but they've flushed a lot of their capital into the company. And since the stock price was in decline so fast, I don't think that they plan for this anymore. And Ethereum is probably really hurting after this investment. While it is possible that Ethereum was planning to short and play it both directions, something about the situation with its current finances in BIORA tells me that Ethereum doesn't actually have the ability to play as freely as they used to in 2021. Just because the overall market doesn't allow them much leeway. They have to really focus on making plays very carefully, operating in a bear market like this. So it's not in their advantage to play games with BIORA stock unless they had like absolute control over the stock price, which I don't think they do. They are buying more of it and they are supporting them with cash so that they can continue with their clinical studies. And right now, this does give BIORA some additional money to work with in order to extend their cash runway. Right now, the big focus on BIORA is getting their key studies finished and getting through phase 1 clinical preclinical studies on their PGN 600 drug delivery system. They gave us a time frame where the anticipated completion of the study will be in 2023, with the next start to the phase 2 happening sometime in mid-2023. How much would it cost to buy all the shares at 30 cents? Well, I'll answer that question a little bit later, but you wouldn't get all the shares for 30 cents. So the company got $6 million in gross proceeds from an existing investor and $3.75 million reinvested by Ethereum from the interest on convertible notes held by the firm. So Ethereum is exercising convertible notes in order to get access to more shares and providing a cash conversion to BIORA. They didn't announce who the investor is, but we're probably going to see in a financial disclosure very soon because they're on a limited time schedule before they can actually announce. So that investor will likely disclose their identity themselves. I'll keep an eye on Fintel to see who that actually is. The bullish statement is that they are on track to initiate clinical studies for the drug device combination early next year. So that's the phase 2 clinical study. That's where they'll be doing live human patient testing for different drug combinations, and they'll be developing the IP to develop dosing regimens for the drug, which would put them on the path to FDA approval. Depending on how quickly the study goes, if they can end it before Q3 of 2023, and I think that he's giving a longer than necessary estimate because things have been moving slower than they should be. And they're also trying to reduce cash burn, so he's giving himself a lot of time and opening up a very large window to meet investor expectations. Here's the other. Here's another very interesting development. So BIORA continued to strengthen its intellectual property portfolio during the third quarter with a newly issued patent covering jet delivery of any glucagon-like peptide receptor agonist formulation to the small intestine for treatment of any disease, including type 2 diabetes. So they are actually talking about developing, I would qualify it as a sugar pill that very quickly deploys a treatment to balance out the blood sugar of type 2 diabetic patients. So they're exploring diabetic treatment with this platform. And that is something that I had speculated over a year ago that would be possible with this system. There are a total of 3 phases, Josh. There's phase 1 and 2. Preclinical is the one that they are now finishing up. The phase 2 clinical trial would start in mid-2023, depending on how quickly they can get all of the data that they want to see to meet FDA expectations. They say that they're on track. So as long as that continues to be the story, then we should anticipate the study completing by Christmas of next year. And then the final trial would be a trial with observation directly from the FDA to determine efficacy of the drug, and that would be the final stage for going to market. So far it looks like they would be going to market sometime in 2024. So much, much longer than I had anticipated. They're still testing adalimumab, which is the Humira drug, and it looks like they are getting good results. The company successfully demonstrated greater than 83% deployment accuracy in dogs. So they're using dogs and pigs to test the drug. Hey, Dan Biker, I don't think that they didn't announce any partnership. They didn't actually state anything. So the only thing that they did say was that they got an investor and an existing investor and Ethereum Capital Management to provide a cash infusion in exchange for shares, totaling in about $9.75 million. So we'll go over the Q3 highlights. Presented results of the company's PM602 study of its targeted therapeutics platform. That's the OBDS. And that study took place at the American College of Gastroenterology annual meeting, demonstrating successful device performance in active UC patients. That's ulcerative colitis. They executed a direct financing raise. That was the payment from an existing investor whose identity is not disclosed, and Ethereum Capital Management for a total of $9.75 million. They presented results of their preclinical studies for the company's systemic therapeutics platform. That was based on studies that they did with animal testing, which all showed positive efficacy. So they're going straight through all the preclinical studies with animals with good results, good bioavailability, and almost no, and basically no rejections, no negative side effects that are usually attributed to drugs like tofacitinib and adalimumab. They received a key patent for oral delivery of any GLP-1 receptor. That's the glucagon for systemic therapeutics. That would be for treatment of type 2 diabetes to balance out blood sugar. They also announced sale of patent rights related to methods for determining the origin of cell-free DNA to Roche Diagnostics. So they will be continuing to generate value from legacy assets. So this is a big deal. This is a source of revenue for BIORA that will continue to allow them to collect revenue. If you're not aware, BIORA used to be Progenity, and what they originally been as a company was, before they were a biotherapeutics company, they were developing genetic DNA testing and diagnostic systems to detect preeclampsia in pregnant mothers. The purpose was to give doctors a heads up for obstetricians that needed to test whether mothers were at risk for preeclampsia, which is one of the leading causes of death for mothers in labor. So they sold those rights, and they're maintaining licenses, and they will generate value from legacy assets. So that means that they have sold the patent rights to Roche Diagnostics, and they will maintain licensure so that they receive revenue from Roche Diagnostics for selling the product. And because that product doesn't actually require FDA approval, Roche Diagnostics will likely start selling that to doctors in real time. And Roche has been around for a while. They've been in this market for decades. So they probably have access to go and take that to market immediately without creating cost for BIORA, who's already trying to reduce cost as it is. So this can be a huge benefit for them that's likely going to result in them adding more revenue for next quarter and the quarter to follow. So this $9.75 million will get BIORA through an additional couple of quarters of their cash burn, and then what we'll see from their new revenue increases once they start getting income from this sale of intellectual property, then we'll see how extensive their cash runway is. So what about the reverse split? They will be effecting a reverse split. That they haven't announced what the ratio will be, but we should expect a reverse split. We already knew that this was coming. They've already been past the 180-day deadline, so they had to discuss this with NASDAQ at some point. So at this point, it's pretty much inevitable that they will be effecting a reverse split. Everybody is going to have to make a decision for themselves what they want to do. If they are in a position to continue accumulating shares, they'll probably be able to do so for much lower prices at the other side of that reverse split. Anybody who's holding calls, including myself, is probably going to lose the entirety of that investment. So it's not what I was hoping for. Oh, the other positive development was that they reduced cash burn by $3 million. So I think I did mention that. They've extended their cash runway by just reducing expenditures. So that's a big deal for BIORA. We should have they should have been cutting costs as much as possible earlier on, but better late than never. So let's see. The estimate for their Q3 report was negative 0.08. So they actually beat they beat by a pretty wide margin, 60% surprise. Honestly, the big reduction of cash burn is what did that for them. Getting the money from Ethereum and that other unnamed investor was good, but reducing their cash burn in the long run is what's going to make the big difference, because that reduces their cash burn to give them a full That'll give them a full $3 million of additional runway every single quarter, which amounts to that'll give them another year of runway based on the current cash they have available. Yeah, their net loss of this month was $5.1 million with a net loss per share of 3 cents. Year over year, that's an improvement over a $43.7 million loss with a net loss per share of 46 cents per share. So they've drastically reduced their cash burn, probably as much as they feasibly can now. At this point, their priority is just getting the studies done and getting a partnership to take them to market. This company has excellent potential, but they need help. They need an investor to actually come in with cash so that they can finish development. Because if they don't, then they're going to get bought out for pennies by some other big pharma company, and their research is going to get absorbed by someone like Pfizer or AbbVie, who's going to take full advantage of it, and they're going to charge people an arm and a leg, and biotherapeutics will just go as an unnamed footnote in the history of the development of this technology. Whoever ends up buying the IP, because they're left with no choice, will just slap their branding on it and claim credit for everything, and they're going to probably try to sell it to people for exorbitant costs. That's the last thing that I want to see happen. It's kind of frustrating. Can market makers start selling 25-cent strike? No. No, it's got to be divisible by 50 cents, I think. So when they reverse split, you lose all your calls? It's because when they reverse split, it causes the value of the calls to split, and because everybody sees reverse splits as inherently bearish, they see weakness in the company, and bears just jump on it and try to tear it to pieces. So inevitably, if that happens and then shorts decide that they want to murder this company, they have all the ammo to do it. Even though the company has got excellent technology, frankly, it doesn't matter. They're in survival mode. That's just the way it is. The reverse split is what they have to do to maintain their NASDAQ listing. So I know they're doing it because it's necessary, but it doesn't feel good. The best thing that can happen for BIORA right now is for a private investor to come in with a request to make a private offer to buy up stock and announce their desire for continued involvement in the investment of the company. Somebody taking up a board seat, basically. That's what would have to happen here. Until they actually take their product to market, they're going to be losing money. The question is, how much can they reduce their cash burn, and can they do it fast enough to keep themselves in business long enough for that sale to happen? Is it certain that the reverse split will happen, or is it just some mandatory thing to mention to get the second 180 days extension? I think that they are stating it because it's their fiduciary duty to let every one of their shareholders know that that is their plan. So they're just being transparent. I would say that they wouldn't have said it if they weren't intent on doing it. It is to be voted on. Do you have a source for that, by the way, Stuart? I'll go look through their recent announcements here. Let's take a look at the free cell DNA rights sale. And then the reverse split should be in here somewhere. Okay, the Series X preferred stock will vote together with the outstanding shares of common stock of the company as a single class exclusively with respect to any proposal to adopt an amendment to the company's 8th Amendment, blah, 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 into a smaller number of shares of common stock at a ratio specified in or determined in accordance with the terms of such an amendment, which proposal may or may not involve a reduction in the total authorized common stock. The preferred stock will not be entitled to vote on any other matter except to the extent required under Delaware general corporate law. So everybody, including preferred stockholders, that's mostly insider and board seat members, will be voting on it. So yes, thank you for the check there, Stuart. Yes, it will be voted on. So the reverse stock split must be voted on, in accordance with their corporate charter. So they do have to get shareholder approval. Which Ethereum is still the majority holder. They're going to hold more than 60% of their stock at this point, again. So whatever Ethereum votes on is what's going to happen. So it's not up to the retail investor. There's nothing that we can do to sway the decision. It's whatever Ethereum wants to happen, which is probably going to be a reverse split. Why not file for the extension first versus going straight to reverse split? After the split, it will be back to below $1 after a month. Well, they probably already filed for the extension and are standing by for a response from NASDAQ. They get up to 360 days. They're going to have to file for the extension because they don't have a whole lot of time left before they would need to get their share price above that $1 threshold. And it needs to stay there for 10 days. Here is the other material catalyst that can happen. As I mentioned several times since we started this stream, the one thing that would put BIORA back in good graces of the market is for an enterprising investor with plenty of cash to announce their purchase of a huge stake in BIORA stock. That's what would require it for them to get a nice bull run. And if that were to happen, and there was a big push in the price of the stock, enough to get it above $1 for just 10 days, then the company would be fine because financially they have the runway to get through all their trials and they are reducing their cash burn. And then they just announced a sale of their intellectual property to give them revenue for their previous diagnostic stuff that they used to create when they were Progenity. Is it smart to buy up shares before the reverse split? If anything, you'd want to buy shares after the reverse split because the price is probably going to decline after that. Yeah, the share price is usually the cheapest on the other side of the reverse split, not before. Thanks, Mitchell. I appreciate that. Happy to help. The day of the vote, I'm looking through this right now. It doesn't look like the actual vote has been decided when that will take place. It will likely take place at an announced shareholder meeting. So we'll wait to see when that is. But if we go back to TradingView, let's go to the daily chart and see how long they've been trading under $1 since April. Yeah, they're at 200 days below $1. Oh, wait, nope. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they're at 180 days, so they've probably already filed for the extension. They had to. So they'll get the announcement that the extension, they'll probably get an announced extension approval from NASDAQ, and they'll let investors know. But what has to happen for this company not to do a reverse split would be for a giant investor to pick up a few million shares right now. You need me to become the huge investor? My dudes, I wish I was. I wish I was. Seriously. I do think that this company has massive potential. I would be buying their stock on the scale that Ethereum Capital is if I had that kind of money, but I don't. I'm a really small time investor. I don't day trade every day. I think people give me a lot more credit than I am due for what I do as a day trader. I'm a swing trader. I invest in swings on like major stocks, like, you know, what trades on the SPY. And I'm right sometimes, I'm wrong sometimes. For me, it's like, you know, for me, this is more of a hobby. You know, I enjoy it. For me, it's fun. But I don't have that kind of cash. If I wanted to, like, I would have to, I wouldn't have the cash to just drop what I do for a living and then just go be a full-time day trader. Like, I don't have that kind of money. And if I don't have that kind of money, then I can't be a whale buying up giant therapeutics companies. I feel you guys. Like, this sucks. It really does. I held on to BIORA for a long time, thinking that their road to the market was going to be a lot shorter because of their preeclampsia products. And then they announced that they would just sell it and focus entirely on the biotherapeutic stuff, which I'm sure they did at the urging of their number one investor, Ethereum Capital Management. But, you know. Yes, I did cover that fact, Keith. Jeffrey, what's his ass from Ethereum Capital Management spent about $3.5 million on BIORA stock. What he did was he exercised his convertible notes. paid BIORA cash and got a bunch of shares. Realistically, what's the price looking at in a reverse split situation? There's no way to know until the actual reverse split occurs, but I would assume they're going to need to do a minimum 10-to-1 reverse split to get the stock above $2. And then you would anticipate downside price action over the next 10 days as the price settled afterwards. So you would see the stocks float get divided by 10, the share price, if it happened today, which it's not, but if it did, it would jump up to $2.80. And then you'd probably get a whole bunch of bears smelling blood in the water come and attack it and drive the price down with shorting. It's kind of the way it goes. There's no shortage of predatory investors looking for a weak stock to beat the shit out of it when it's down. That's just how it is. It doesn't matter what the company is good at or what it's developing. Like people just smell money and they take it any way they can get it. It's just the way it is. Maybe that's being cynical, but it's also being, realistic. So if you had about 20,000 shares and an average of 30 cents, what would your play be? Man, I don't know. We're going to have to see in the next couple of days because earnings were basically like nothing. There's nothing bad about the earnings call, but there was nothing good about it either. There's no volume in the stock at all, which is super disappointing. And it always seems to me that like the stock doesn't move until after the earnings report is done. At least if it's going to push to the upside. Let me see what this candle was. This is probably the purchase by Ethereum here. We had all these conversions happen. Probably right around here, a few days before the earnings call. So, kind of a disappointing earnings, not because anything bad happened. Honestly, like what they had to share was pretty good, but it wasn't what we were hoping for, which was a big partnership announcement, which they promised multiple times. And of course, Adi Mohanty disappoints everybody by just not talking about it at all and pretending he never said anything about it. Well, for me, I'm just going to hold on to BIORA. That's my play. But if people are not willing to hold through the volatility, like that's up to them. If you want to save your cash, then what you have to do is escape the position. You just have to get out for what you can. But I don't have a play right now. My decision was to stay in the position. The calls that I have are going to end up being worthless unless something fundamentally changes. My calls mostly expire around January 2023. What is the buyout thesis? Big Pharma waits for the company to be like in desperate need of rescue and about to go bankrupt, and then they say, hey, we'll buy you. And then, of course, the executives go, yes, absolutely, and then give us a bonus, and then we'll say yes. That's the buyout thesis. It's just really frustrating because the company has really cool technology, really valuable technology. It would fundamentally transform internal medicine, and I invested in BIORA, maybe being too optimistic about how much good there is in the world, and I just hadn't been hurt enough. The way I see it is that this industry, especially in healthcare and novel health technology, the world is more, well, the industry is evil. That's the way I see it. So I probably should have reminded myself of that before holding this thing down to the price of 28 cents. Mexico is gonna no, probably not. Okay. Well, I think that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys for dropping by for the stream. I'm sorry that the earnings call was kind of like really nothing, but at least we did get some good indications that they will be just fine going into next year. 2023 is a new year for this company. Their preclinical studies, once they complete, which I firmly and strongly believe they will get the data that they are looking for. They already had way better than expected results on their first trials, which were fantastic. The outcome of their latest reduction in cash burn was definitely way better than expected. A drop in $3 million per quarter in expenditure is really good news. The partnership didn't get announced. As far as I know, there was never a partnership. Eddie Mahanti's just talking out of his ass, which I'm really not surprised by anymore. The guy's never really kept a single promise in his life. So, whatever. At this point, anything that comes out of Mahanti's mouth, if it's not on the record with a whole bunch of lawyers listening in on the call, I don't assume he's going to tell the truth. The only thing that I care about is, are the studies progressing? Will there be efficacy of the drug? And how soon before we go to market? And he's not going to answer that last question until he actually has the FDA approval in his hand. So I guess that's going to be it for that one. So that concludes the earnings call. Thank you guys so much for joining the stream. If you guys want to get access to this information in the future, we cover more than just BIORA stock. We cover the entire market and focus very heavily on trading successfully on the S&P. So if you'd like to join us for those little adventures, be sure to leave a like, hit the subscribe button so you get notified when we go live, and also consider joining Hell's Trading Floor at hellstradingfloor.com, where you can sign up for our Discord at discord.gg/Hell's Trading Floor. Our group is always streaming live on our voice chat, where we are actively hunting down plays as a group and teaching people how to trade the market and make your money work for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time. But until